Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are facing, well, the ultimate obstacle, really. The one we often mistake for, lack of resources or maybe bad luck or even some kind of character flaw. We're talking about self-sabotage. That chronic tendency many of us have to pull the rug out from under ourselves, often right when success feels close. And usually we look at this pretty simply, right? Like it's just a failure of willpower, or maybe we're just not motivated enough. But the sources we're digging into today, they challenge that completely.
Oh, absolutely. They present a perspective that's, well, it's a real shift, a big one. If you find yourself struggling to achieve something consistently, maybe it's a fitness goal, hitting a financial target, or finding a relationship that lasts the obstacle, it's rarely what's right there in front of you. The core argument we're really analyzing today is that the problem isn't external at all. It's fundamentally internal, and our source material uses this really powerful ancient metaphor for it: the mountain.
Okay, so we're not talking about climbing Mount Everest here. We're climbing Mount Me.
That's it, precisely. You've got it. There's a quote that just encapsulates this whole idea perfectly. The mountain is often less a challenge in front of us as it is a problem within us. So if you consistently struggle to reach your goals, the issue isn't really about your capability. It's more about compliance, internal compliance.
That distinction feels really crucial. It's not the height of the peak out there.
No.
It's the internal landscape, the architecture inside that formed the peak.
Exactly. And that internal architecture, the sources explain, it comes from what they call coexisting but conflicting needs. So you've got the conscious part of you, the part that genuinely wants the promotion or the stability or the love.
Yeah, the part we're aware of.
Right, but it's clashing with this unconscious part of you, the part that's holding you back, often without you even knowing why. It might even see success as some kind of threat. So our mission today is to really dig deep into that internal resistance. We want to expose the surprising purpose that self-sabotage actually serves, and hopefully help you figure out how to separate genuine gut instinct from fear-based predictions, and then map out the micro shifts, the small steps needed to finally break through for good.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If the real obstacle is this internal conflict, does that mean conflict itself is actually, necessary for growth? We tend to think that a smooth life, an easy life, is a successful one, and that discomfort, it's always a bad sign, like a red flag telling you to stop, turn back. But what this source material is suggesting is that life, and even nature itself, often works in our favor through adversity, through discomfort. Like, nature doesn't just avoid destruction, it actually uses it. It's a blueprint for renewal.
That's absolutely right. And there are some really striking analogies we can pull from ecology. Think about forest fires. They seem purely destructive, right? Terrible ants. But ecologists understand they're actually essential to the ecology of the environment. Essential.
Why is that? How can destruction be essential?
Well, because certain types of seeds, they're called serotinous seeds, they need the intense heat from that fire just to open up and sprout. Without that destructive fire, the next generation of trees literally can't start growing. The old forest just gets choked, unhealthy. So adversity isn't just something to be endured, it's the mechanism that ensures the environment renews itself. It thrives because of the fire.
Wow. And the sources even take this idea bigger, like cosmically bigger, this breakdown leading to breakthrough idea. It's mirrored in how stars live and die.
Yeah, it's a powerful image. A star has to undergo this massive catastrophic implosion first. It collapses in on itself. And only then does it have the energy required to become a supernova.
So the destruction isn't the end.
No, it's the prelude. It's the necessary step before the most incredible creation imaginable.
Okay, our minds aren't quite supernovae, thankfully.
Very not.
But they follow a similar pattern, you're saying. These periods of, what did the sources call it? Positive disintegration.
Yes, positive disintegration. It sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it?
It really does.
But it describes these structured episodes our minds go through. It's like a mental fire, a kind of cleansing process. We're basically compelled to let go of old beliefs, old ways of coping, and renew our whole concept of who we are.
Okay, positive disintegration. Can you break down how that actually works? What does that cleansing look like?
Sure. So this concept, it comes from Dabrowski's theory, actually. It sees transformation not as just one big event, but as a journey through specific stages of mental discomfort. When life forces us out of our comfort zone, we hit what's called an edge state.
An edge state, like the edge of what we know,
Exactly. It's that psychological territory where our usual coping mechanisms, the procrastination, the denial, the quick fixes we rely on, they just stop working. They fail completely. And that failure, it's not a sign that you're broken. It's actually the moment of awakening. It forces you finally to address the deep-seated problems that those old coping mechanisms were built to hide or avoid. The sources really insist that the goal of being human isn't stability, it's growth. And our problems, we should see them as catalysts for that growth. Always.
But how do we tell the difference?
Yeah.
Between the necessary pain of growing and just life being hard sometimes. This brings us to that really critical distinction you mentioned earlier, the chronic versus the circumstantial problem.
Yes, and getting this distinction clear is absolutely paramount for self-awareness. It's key. Circumstantial hardship is, well, it's facing the objective reality of life. Things happen, a sudden illness, the stock market tanks, you have to pay taxes.
External stuff that happens to you.
Right, external challenges that usually need external solutions, but the mountain, the internal one, that's a chronic problem.
Okay, so what defines that chronic problem? How is it different?
When a problem is circumstantial, you're facing the reality of life. But when the problem is chronic, you're facing the reality of yourself. The chronic problem is an accumulation. It's like compound interest, but for tiny traumas, adaptations, and coping mechanisms that have built up over years and years. So it's not the difficulty of the task itself that's stopping you, it's the internal structure of avoidance, of resistance that you built up way back to sidestep earlier, maybe smaller discomforts. The mountain is really the self-imposed barrier. It stands between you and the life you actually want, the potential you envision. And facing it, facing the reality of who you've become because of all those accumulative avoidances, that, the sources say, is the only path to your freedom and becoming. And this leads us right into understanding how self-sabotage actually functions. If we're defining the mountain as this chronic internal block, we really have to move past the surface level idea of self-sabotage, thinking it's just masochism or lack of discipline. Psychologically speaking, self-sabotage is the active presence of an unconscious need that's actually being fulfilled by the destructive behavior.
Whoa, okay, so the behavior is actually working, just in a hidden, unhelpful way. It's happening for a part of you, achieving some kind of negative balance.
Exactly, a negative homeostasis, you could call it. And because that goal isn't conscious, you can't just muscle through it with will. Back to school, he really disliked school at the time.
Okay.
So what happened next is the fascinating part. Shortly after that incident, he started having these sporadic but totally debilitating fainting spells. Those were the self-sabotage.
The fainting spells were the symptom, the physical expression of that wish to escape school.
Exactly. And he eventually had this crucial realization, these neuroses, the fainting, the anxiety, maybe a depression, they are often substitutes for legitimate suffering. His unconscious mind had made this connection totally irrational but highly effective. Fainting equals escape from the discomfort of school. It was fulfilling that deeply felt need he had to avoid his unhappiness, but without forcing him to consciously confront his parents or the school about how miserable he was. He got the relief he craved, but through a completely maladaptive way.
That raises a really important question for listeners, though. How do we tell the difference? How do we know if it's this substitute for legitimate suffering, this self-sabotage, versus just, being lazy or avoiding something unpleasant? Where's the practical line?
That's a great question. The line, I think, often lies in the intensity and the recurrence. Laziness is usually more circumstantial, right? You're avoiding a specific task today. Self-sabotage tends to be chronic. It often carries this huge emotional weight, pain, shame, precisely because the behavior is fulfilling some unconscious need that your conscious mind actually hates.
Okay, so the emotional charge is a clue.
A big one. If you find yourself repeatedly destroying healthy relationships, for example, but you feel this intense, almost unbearable fear when you're alone, the sabotage is likely driven by a genuine, deep-seated fear of self-reliance, not just laziness. The neurosis, the destructive pattern, is a substitute for the legitimate suffering that you imagine would come from being truly alone and having to figure out who you are.
Okay, let's look at some other ways this can show up based on the sources, like sabotaging relationships to paradoxically find oneself.
No.
That sounds complex.
It is, and it's quite common. The underlying fear there isn't necessarily about commitment itself. It's often about the vulnerability that true commitment requires,
Right.
being truly seen.
Right.
So the destructive behavior may be starting fights, creating distance, nitpicking it, serves to create this temporary sense of self outside the demands or perceived merging with another person. It gives you space, but without you having to actually ask for space, which might feel selfish or scary or risk rejection.
Okay, or what about the person who keeps hitting a ceiling at work? Or maybe even blows things up right before a big promotion or opportunity?
Yeah, that person might consciously, genuinely want career success. But the hidden fear, the unconscious need being met by the sabotage, could be something else entirely. Maybe it's a fear of losing time for their real passion. Let's say it's creating art. Or maybe a bit darker, a fear of being seen as less ambitious or serious if they actually pursued that art.
Ah, so the sabotage keeps them safe in the middle.
Exactly. They stay busy, stressed, maybe achieve moderate success, but never break through. And this gives them a convenient external excuse. Oh, I'm just too busy, too important with my real job to make art. They're keeping themselves safely in a middle ground, avoiding both the vulnerability that comes with huge success and the potential judgment they fear if they chose a less conventional path. The unconscious goal there is avoiding judgment, and the sabotage, staying stuck, achieves that goal perfectly by ensuring maximum distraction and busyness.
So even things like constant self-criticism, that nagging inner voice of doubt, that's also a form of self-sabotage serving a purpose.
Absolutely. Think about it. If you truly, fully believed in yourself, what would happen?
You'd have to take bigger risks, probably.
You'd be obligated to. You'd have to put yourself out there, making yourself deeply vulnerable to external rejection or failure. So by constantly criticizing yourself, doubting yourself essentially, by sabotaging your own self-talk, you create this kind of preemptive defense. When external failure does happen, it hurts a little less because, well, you already told yourself it would. Your inner voice says, see, I knew I wasn't good enough. It fulfills this weird need for emotional prediction and control, even though the cost is massive damage to your self-esteem.
It all seems to boil down to these really abstract, deep-seated fears and these negative associations we picked up. The example about fearing being a car passenger was really striking.
Yeah, the sources really emphasize that if you have an intense fear of being a passenger in a car, it's almost never actually about the car itself. The car is just a symbol, a metaphor.
A metaphor for what, usually?
Often it represents a feeling of loss of control more generally in your life, or sometimes a fear of moving forward too quickly, maybe in a career or relationship. So if all your effort goes into just trying to manage the anxiety in the car, deep breathing, distractions, you're basically trying to, as the course puts it, rip off a Band-Aid before you have a strategy to heal the wound. The wound isn't the car, it's the feeling of powerlessness.
You have to address the deeper issue of control first.
Exactly. And often the surface anxiety, like the fear in the car, will resolve naturally once the underlying issue is addressed.
And this hidden structure also includes these negative associations we might have picked up, maybe unconsciously, often related to things like money or success.
Oh, the negative association trap is incredibly powerful. Think about the messages you might have absorbed growing up, maybe from family, maybe from culture or media, painting wealthy people as inherently terrible or greedy or unethical.
Right, those narratives are definitely out there.
So if you absorbed that, your subconscious mind's primary job becomes protecting your identity as a good person. And if good means not wealthy, then achieving financial stability actually feels threatening. It breaches your core self-concept.
So you unconsciously resist it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It creates this deep-seated resistance. Maybe it shows up as anxiety around finances, procrastination on saving or investing, maybe even reckless spending. It ensures you stay, perhaps, just comfortable enough, but never truly wealthy enough to become that terrible person you unconsciously fear becoming.
Yeah.
You're meeting an emotional need, the need to feel morally upright, but the physical outcome, the financial struggle, is highly destructive.
It really seems like the emotional connection is the absolute key here. If we feel anxious about something, it's usually because it's bumping up against one of these limiting beliefs.
That's it, exactly. And this explains why so many coping mechanisms involve trying to get a quick physical fix for an underlying emotional need. If you consistently turn to food or smoking or maybe alcohol to soothe yourself, the real question isn't about the food or the drink, it's what actually needs soothing in the first place.
Right, what's the feeling underneath?
You're using a physical substance or action to try and meet an emotional need, maybe for comfort or connection or just escape. The sabotaging behavior, the overeating or drinking, is just a proxy. It's standing in for the real, unmet emotional demand.
Okay, so if the mountain is this chronic internal structure built from these needs and fears, why is it still so incredibly hard to push past it? Even when we intellectually understand it, even when we know we should change, why do we resist moving forward, even when we know it would be good for us?
Well, a big part of it is what we could call the unfamiliarity trap. It's really rooted deep in our survival instincts. We seem to have this primal, almost hardwired resistance to the unknown, because historically the unknown often did represent danger, loss of control, threats.
So even if the unknown is something positive,
Even if the unknown outcome is, say, a peaceful, happy, thriving life, initially it still registers in our system as a potential threat, simply because it's different, it's unfamiliar. We tend to confuse that necessary temporary discomfort that comes with anything new with the idea that the new path itself must be somehow wrong or bad for us.
this sounds exactly like Gay Hendricks' concept of the upper limit.
It aligns perfectly.
Yeah.
The upper limit theory basically suggests that each of us has a kind of internal thermostat for positive feelings, a tolerance level for happiness, success, love.
Happiness set point.
Kind of, yeah. And when your life circumstances push you beyond that established baseline capacity for good feelings, your unconscious mind basically panics. It registers this excessive good fortune as destabilizing, maybe even dangerous.
So it tries to pull you back down.
Exactly. To restore that feeling of psychological safety, you unconsciously sabotage yourself. Maybe it's picking a sudden argument, experiencing a mysterious bout of illness, procrastinating on a really key project. Something to bring you back down to the comfortable, familiar baseline of happiness you're used to. The core idea is that we're often wired to seek what we've known, not necessarily what would make us truly happy long term.
That explains so much. Like when things are going really well for someone and then they suddenly create drama or pick fights over something small, they've exceeded their own capacity for good feelings.
Precisely. It's like an urgent subconscious call to return to the known pattern. It can manifest in weird ways, little accidents, unnecessary spending sprees, impulsive decisions that just slam the brakes on any forward momentum.
Okay, now let's go a bit deeper into why change is so hard. It's not just a psychological preference, right? There's a biological, neurological component too.
Yeah.
This homeostatic impulse.
Yes, this is absolutely fundamental to understanding resistance. Our subconscious mind, which is like our deep operating system, is governed by this incredibly powerful homeostatic impulse. We know it regulates physical things, keeping our heartbeat steady, our breathing regular, our body temperature constant.
Right, automatic bodily functions.
But it's just as determined to regulate our mental self. It acts like the gatekeeper of your comfort zone. So when you attempt any kind of radical change, starting a new business, moving to a new city, committing to a healthy lifestyle, your homeostatic impulse registers this deviation from the norm as an existential threat to your current mental stability.
So the intense anxiety you feel when starting something new isn't necessarily a sign you're failing.
No, it's often just the homeostatic impulse fighting like crazy to maintain the status quo, to keep you in the zone it recognizes as safe, even if that zone is limiting or unhappy.
And this internal pressure gets compounded by something else too, right? Confirmation bias.
Absolutely. Our brain is fundamentally an efficiency machine. It wants to conserve energy, so it actively filters information. It interprets things, and it recalls memories in ways that affirm our pre-existing beliefs. If you've spent, say, 20 years telling yourself, I'm just not an organized person, your brain will subconsciously filter out all the times you were organized and laser focus on the one time your desk was messy.
It's looking for proof that the belief is true.
Constantly. It's actively reinforcing that limiting self-concept, which makes it incredibly difficult to genuinely change the narrative about who you are or what you're capable of.
Wow. Okay, so with all this resistance, this constant justification, it must lead people into denial. The source is called denial, the ultimate block.
Denial takes a huge amount of energy, it really does. And it often shows up as being stuck in chronic blame mode. We dedicate immense cognitive resources to justifying why we're unhappy, rationalizing why we're stuck, finding external reasons for our internal problems. It's the economy, it's my boss, it's my partner.
Always something outside.
Always. And this denial is precisely why superficial fixes like affirmations often fail. You can stand in front of the mirror repeating, I am worthy, I am successful. But if deep down you know you're avoiding the real work, you know you're not being authentic, that internal dissonance just creates more suffering, not less.
So the only way out starts with radical accountability.
Yeah.
Getting really clear.
It has to start there. The sources put it so starkly. It does not matter what your life looks like on the outside. It is how you feel about it on the inside.
Yeah.
If you find yourself constantly needing to rationalize or justify your choices, your job, your relationships, your level of happiness to other people, you're likely stuck in denial. The path to freedom really begins when you start pouring energy into justification and start investing it in clarity, seeing things as they are, inside yourself.
And often it seems people only reach that point of radical clarity when things get really bad, when they hit what we call rock bottom.
Yeah, rock bottom is often misunderstood, I think. It's not usually some magical, sudden epiphany that comes out of nowhere just because things fell apart externally. It's more often simply the point where the sheer cost of maintaining the denial finally becomes greater than the perceived cost of changing.
The pain of staying the same outweighs the fear of change.
Exactly. It's that moment when the thought, I never want to feel this way again, transforms from just a fleeting wish into a deep, visceral, life-altering declaration, a real resolution.
But does it have to be rock bottom? Can't we make that commitment to change without needing a total catastrophe?
Oh, absolutely we can. But the psychological reality for many people is that change is driven by comfort. We tend not to move until not changing becomes the more uncomfortable, more painful option. Human behavior is largely guided by seeking comfort and conserving energy. Rock bottom just clarifies the stakes in a way that's hard to ignore. It makes staying where you are seem utterly non-viable, completely undesirable. And in that moment, the incredibly difficult work of transformation can momentarily feel like the easier choice compared to the overwhelming pain of staying stuck.
Okay, so once that commitment is finally made, once you decide to climb the mountain, you're stepping into territory that requires real transformation. And the sources warn this often means saying goodbye to the old life, which itself can feel like a huge loss and trigger more self-sabotage.
It absolutely does. Choosing a new path inevitably means leaving behind the comfort zone, that old sense of direction, even if it was wrong. And often, old relationships that were built around the person you used to be, the struggling you.
People might not understand the changes.
Right. It will likely cost you being liked and understood by your old circle. Sometimes people resent growth in others that they aren't willing to pursue themselves. It can be painful. The crucial reframe here, though, is to realize, as the sources say, all you're going to lose is what was built for a person you no longer are.
That's powerful. Holding on to the old identity is the real sabotage at that point.
It's the final, maybe most sophisticated act of self-sabotage, resisting the becoming.
Okay, so as we navigate this new path, this transformation, we need some kind of internal compass. But it seems absolutely vital to learn how to distinguish between genuine, helpful instinct and that fear-based projection, what the sources called psychic thinking. That feels key for mental clarity.
Oh, it's absolutely critical. It can be the difference between navigating successfully and completely derailing yourself again. We're right to sometimes trust our gut. The sources remind us that our gastrointestinal system, the enteric nervous system, really does function like a second brain. It logs subconscious cues and information much faster than our conscious mind often does.
So gut feelings can be real data.
They can. Genuine instinct is usually correct. But here's the crucial distinction. Real instinct is quiet. It's subtle. And it functions only in the present moment. It's usually a gentle, physical, somatic response, like a sudden knot in your stomach or a feeling of ease related to something happening right now.
Okay, quiet, subtle, present moment. How does that contrast with fear or this psychic thinking?
Fear is the opposite. It's loud, it's hectic, it constantly projects catastrophe into the future. Psychic thinking is when we start assuming we know exactly what other people are thinking or intending. Or we predict these unlikely disastrous outcomes, or we take minor setbacks and blow them up into total catastrophes.
So if my gut feeling is predicting I'll be fired next week because my boss seemed slightly off this morning.
That's almost certainly projection. That's fear doing psychic thinking. Real intuitive thoughts tend to be calmer, more rational. They help you deal with what is happening now. Invasive thoughts, the ones rooted in fear, are frantic. They jump straight to the worst possible conclusion, which immediately floods you with panic and anxiety.
The sources also mention something interesting, that highly intelligent people can sometimes struggle more with this kind of anxiety, because their ability to analyze and infer meaning actually helps them create more convincing, fearful scenarios.
Yes, it's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Highly analytical minds are brilliant at connecting dots and creating complex narratives. That's fantastic for solving real problems.
But terrible for anxiety.
Terrible for anxiety because they can use that same intelligence to invent incredibly detailed and seemingly plausible threats out of thin air. They take one small piece of actual evidence, maybe a slightly critical comment at work, and then apply logical fallacies very convincingly to themselves to completely derail their own peace of mind.
Can you give some examples of those faulty inferences? How does that work?
Sure. One common one is catastrophizing. The mind takes A, a small mistake maybe, and jumps immediately to Z, total career failure, ruin, homelessness, without logically passing through any intermediate steps like B, C, or D. The intellectual horsepower makes that illogical jump feel rational in the moment.
Right, the end of the world scenario.
Exactly. Another is hasty generalization, taking one single instance of a negative outcome, I failed that one test, and applying it as a universal permanent law. Therefore, I will always fail at everything important. And a third is personalization. This is where everything negative that happens, even things clearly outside your control, gets linked back to some fundamental flaw in you. The team project failed because I am inherently incompetent, rather than considering external factors like, say, market changes or supply chain issues.
So these are like intelligent ways to construct fear.
Precisely. They are sophisticated mental constructs used to invent threats, which then fuels the anxiety and the urge to self-sabotage to avoid the imagined catastrophe.
Okay, so we need to ground ourselves in the present moment, use logic, not future fear projection. But what about all the emotional stuff from the past? The backlog, the anger, the grief, the pain we never dealt with, it's just stored up inside.
Yeah, we absolutely have to address that emotional backlog. And the first step is acknowledging the physical reality of emotions. Emotions aren't just abstract mental states. They are physical experiences. They have a motor component, a physical energy that needs to move. When we suppress emotions, when we avoid expressing them, they don't just evaporate, they get stuck. They become embodied tension, physically held in the body.
That's where we get the classic stress manifestations, right? Like anger showing up as jaw tension or neck pain. Fear maybe in the stomach or lower back.
Exactly. If you consistently swallow your anger, suppress the urge to stand up for yourself, or hold back tears of frustration or sadness, that residual, unexpressed energy literally gets lodged somewhere. Throat, shoulders, stomach, jaw. The sources suggest a clear 3-step process for healthier emotional processing to clear this backlog. First, get really clear on what actually happened. Identify the specific incident or situation that triggered the strong emotion. Don't generalize. Second, validate your own feelings. This is crucial. Allow the physical release, cry if you need to, shake, maybe vent safely to a trusted friend or therapist. You have to internally affirm that anyone in that situation would likely feel similarly. Accept the emotion as a valid human response. Don't judge it as weak or wrong.
Okay, clarity, then validation and release. What's third?
Third is determine a course correction. Based on what happened and how you felt, figure out an action plan for the future. How can you handle similar situations differently? What boundaries need to be set? What needs to change? You have to let the feelings move through you and inform constructive action. Otherwise, they stay stuck and end up controlling your behavior through unconscious sabotage.
In all of this, managing fear, processing emotions, leads to what sounds like the most critical and maybe the hardest lesson in overcoming self-sabotage.
Yeah.
You have to learn to disconnect your actions from your immediate feelings.
Yes. This is often the biggest sticking point for people. We get held back constantly because we wait until we feel like making the change. We wait for motivation to strike.
But feelings often argue against change.
Exactly. Our emotions, heavily influenced by that homeostatic impulse we talked about, naturally favor safety, comfort, and familiarity, not growth, not challenge. So they will perpetually argue against taking difficult, necessary action. The secret, counterintuitive as it sounds, is this. It is essential that you learn to take action before you feel like doing it.
Act first, feel later.
In a sense, yes. Taking the action, even small action, is what generates the momentum. It creates small wins, which release positive neurochemicals, which then builds feelings of accomplishment and eventually motivation. Motivation and positive feelings don't usually arrive spontaneously. motivated and ready to start, you'll likely wait forever.
Okay, so waiting for the feeling, waiting for motivation. It sounds a lot like waiting for that one big earth-shattering moment of transformation, that single breakthrough. But the sources are really clear. That's not how lasting change usually happens. It's about microshifts.
That is absolutely one of the most important practical takeaways from all of this. People get stuck waiting for the lightning bolt, a flash of genius, a sudden realization that changes everything. The sources bluntly say that moment will never come. What we perceive as breakthroughs are almost always just tipping points. They're the visible result that only occurs after months, sometimes years, of monotonous, unglamorous, consistent micro work. The small steps. We tend to wildly overestimate what we can achieve in a single day, and we catastrophically underestimate what we can accomplish over a decade through consistent effort.
The sources used a really powerful financial analogy for this compounding effect of microshifts. Can we break that down? Because it perfectly illustrates why we often choose that immediate comfort over the huge long-term gain.
Yeah, it's a great illustration. Consider spending, say, $10 a day on something non-essential. Maybe it's a fancy coffee, maybe take out lunch, whatever. Most people see that as pretty minor, right? A small, harmless daily comfort.
Sure, it doesn't seem like a big deal.
But the source did the math. That $10 spent daily for 50 years. If it were instead invested and allowed to compound at a modest 5% interest rate, amounts to over $816,000 lost.
Wow, $816,000 from $10 a day.
It's staggering, right? The small things add up dramatically, whether it's spending or saving, positive habits or negative ones. And the psychology behind why we make the wrong choice is clear. The pain of giving up the $10 coffee today is immediate, it's visible, it's certain. The potential reward of $816,000 50 years from now, that's invisible. It's abstract, it feels uncertain. So we almost always choose the immediate, certain comfort over the delayed, uncertain, massive benefit.
The practical application of this principle for change, then, is huge. Real success isn't about waiting for passion to strike. It's about consistent, small actions governed by principle.
Exactly. Lasting change begins with these tiny, almost undetectable decisions. Decisions that, repeated consistently, gradually restructure your comfort zone without triggering massive resistance from that homeostatic impulse. If you hate exercise, you don't force yourself into an hour-long torture session. You commit to just 10 minutes. If you want to read more but feel overwhelmed, you commit to just one single page.
Keep it small enough not to feel threatened.
Right, these tiny steps feel non-threatening, almost insignificant. But their consistency creates an exponential harvest over time. They become the most effective weapon against the overwhelm that often leads to self-sabotage.
Okay, so if these microshifts are the vehicle that carries us forward, then principles are like the engine. We need to guide our lives less by fleeting inspiration and more by objective principles.
That's a great way to put it. Inspiration is fickle. It's tied to moods, emotions, these vague, high-level feelings. It comes and goes. Relying on it is unreliable. Principles, on the other hand, are like objective truth. They're like the laws of cause and effect, the physics of a well-lived life. Adopting principles shifts your focus from just surviving the day-to-day, putting out fires, to actually building long-term thriving. And yes, they're often boring. They're logical truths. Prioritize your physical health. Live beneath your means. Don't rely on external validation for your self-worth. Build strong relationships. They aren't flashy, but they work.
And the sources strongly warn that without establishing these internal principles, even achieving external success won't actually solve the underlying problems. The problems just follow you.
It's practically a guarantee. As the source says, more money does not solve money problems. If you have poor financial habits, more money just means bigger debts, bigger messes. Problems rooted in your internal state, your principles, or lack thereof, are only going to follow you and get bigger as your life does. If you're emotionally chaotic and lack self-awareness, finding the perfect partner won't fix you. That partner will simply become the new target or reflection of your unresolved issues. Principles are the foundation that stops the mountain from just rebuilding itself in a new location.
Okay, before moving to the final stretch about sustaining change, let's quickly recap some of those key signs. How can listeners recognize if they might be caught in this self-sabotage cycle right now? Give us that checklist again.
Yeah, it's good to pause and reflect. Ask yourself honestly, drawing from the sources, are you generally more aware of what you don't want in your life, the debt, the job you hate, the extra weight, than what you actively do want? Is your focus primarily negative? Are you pouring energy into trying to impress people who clearly don't like you or don't respect you, sacrificing your authenticity for external approval that never comes?
That's a big one.
Huge. Are you actively avoiding looking at basic facts about your situation, like your bank balance, your health metrics, because facing the truth feels too uncomfortable? And a major red flag. Are you treating your coping mechanisms, things like overeating, compulsive shopping, overworking, excessive drinking as the problem, instead of asking, what's the underlying emotional need that this behavior is actually trying and failing to fill?
And perhaps the most powerful one, are you consistently valuing your doubts and your fears more than your own potential, giving more weight to the what ifs of failure than the possibilities of success?
That negativity bias is like fuel for the self-sabotage. If you recognize yourself at several of those points, chances are you're actively caught in the cycle. And the work really begins with acknowledging these patterns without judgment, and then starting the process of shifting your focus from fighting the symptom to constructively understanding and fulfilling the underlying need. So let's say you've done the work. You've identified the patterns, you've studied the principles, you've made significant progress, maybe achieved a major goal you were sabotaging before. You've climbed a big part of the mountain. Now you run into the final and often really confusing hurdle, what the sources call adjustment shock.
Adjustment shock.
Yeah.
Even after positive changes.
Yes. It's this paradoxical psychological reality where massive positive shifts in your life, finally getting healthy, finding a stable relationship, achieving financial security, can initially feel incredibly uncomfortable, destabilizing. It can even trigger surprising bouts of anxiety or depression.
Why would that happen? It seems counterintuitive. Success should feel good.
It should, eventually. But remember the unfamiliarity trap and the homeostatic impulse. The new, better reality is still unfamiliar. And the brain, especially the subconscious, often views anything unfamiliar as a potential threat, regardless of whether it's objectively good or bad.
So the brain is basically fighting the change. Even if it's a good change, it wants to go back to the old normal.
Exactly. It's fighting the shift from that known, comfortable, even if miserable survival mode to this alien, unfamiliar, thriving mode. Adjustment shock often shows up as hypervigilance. Suddenly having financial security might trigger intense paranoia about losing it all, a huge tax bill, an economic crash. Or finally, finding a truly healthy, stable relationship might trigger irrational fears of betrayal, infidelity, or that it's too good to be true and about to end any second. You start projecting danger onto safety.
Wow, so the mind is still running the old defensive software, even in a safe environment.
Correct. And beyond that, the brain is suddenly forced to confront bigger, maybe more unsettling questions. When you're no longer constantly fighting fires or just trying to survive, your mind has space to pivot. It starts grappling with things like purpose, legacy, meaning. And those big questions can feel deeply unsettling because they require vulnerability, introspection, maybe admitting you don't have all the answers.
So overcoming adjustment shock means just tolerating the discomfort. Letting yourself get used to the new normal.
Pretty much. It means consciously normalizing the discomfort, recognizing it for what it is, the brain recalibrating and slowly, patiently acclimating yourself to the new higher standard. Trusting that the good can actually last.
And throughout this whole process, from starting the climb to adjusting to the summit, the sources really emphasize the need for deep emotional self-validation.
Validation is so critical. It's essentially the antidote to that emotional backlog we discussed. So often we get stuck in destructive patterns or even create drama because on some level we desperately need someone, anyone to simply affirm, it's okay that you feel this way.
And validation doesn't mean agreeing that the feeling is logical, right?
Not at all. It doesn't mean agreeing that your feelings are rational or justified by the facts. It simply means accepting that they are human, allowing them to exist, to be felt, to move through your body naturally without judgment. True self-care in this deeper context isn't just bubble baths. It's meeting your fundamental needs first: consistent sleep, decent nutrition, a reasonably clean environment. And it's actively giving yourself permission to feel whatever you're feeling, without labeling it good or bad. Resisting feelings just locks them in place and gives them more power. Accepting them allows them to eventually dissolve.
Okay, this all seems to be leading us towards the ultimate end game here, moving from self-sabotage to self-mastery.
That's the goal. Mastery, in this sense, is the profound realization that the mountain, that internal struggle, wasn't put there just to stop you. In a way, it was put there to define you, to show you what you're capable of overcoming. It means taking radical and complete responsibility for your life. all of it. Recognizing that the discomfort you endured during the climb wasn't some kind of punishment or purgatory. It was, as the sources suggest, your deepest inner self informing you that you were capable of more, deserving of better. It was a signal that your current state wasn't aligned with your potential.
And the goal of achieving that mastery, what does that look like day to day?
The ultimate goal, I think, is reaching a place where you prioritize nothing, absolutely nothing, over the quality of your one precious, short life. The source material offers this really stark, grounding reminder. What you have now, you could lose tomorrow, and gripping it so tightly, binding it up with resistance, doesn't mean it's safer. Mastery isn't about controlling everything. It's the freedom that comes from knowing you're operating from internal principles, from self-awareness, from authenticity, not from fear or unconscious needs. Hashtag outro.
Wow. This has been a really deep dive offering such a powerful reframe on self-sabotage. The core insight, it seems, is that the mountain really is you. It's built from those limiting beliefs, those conflicting unconscious needs we carry around. And lasting transformation doesn't come from waiting for some magic moment, some single breakthrough. It comes from the slow, steady, cumulative effect of those microships. And from consciously adopting objective, consistent principles to guide our choices.
Exactly. If that path still feels incredibly daunting, just remember that a lot of it is psychological processes. Oftentimes we have to fear these things. Traumas that disconnect us from fundamental safety. The most resilient path to recovery is often the most actively reestablishing a sense of safety in the very area we felt fairly more confident in. So, if you are wounded by financial instability, the path involves diligently, patiently building real financial safety now. If you were deeply hurt by relationship betrayal, the healing comes through learning to build new, genuinely trustworthy, safe connections. And maybe take this final provocative thought from our sources on resilience with you. You are not supposed to go back to being naive, less jaded, or more unaware. That's not the reward for surviving difficulty. What you earn for going through something painful is actually far more valuable. You become more resilient, more self-sufficient, more empowered.
You're not broken for being in pain or for having struggled. You're simply witnessing yourself on the path out of it, building strength along the way. So maybe the challenge for everyone listening is to identify just one microshift, one tiny action you can commit to today. Choose that action over waiting for the feeling. Start building that momentum one small step at a time to climb your mountain. You have the knowledge now, and you absolutely have the ability to begin.